So today's been quite a big announcement for the Isle of Man government. This comes from the Treasury Department about more relief. Up to now there's been criticism that maybe that support hasn't been shown since the last lockdown. So with me is Treasury Minister Alf Cannan. So Mr Cannan, has this been forced upon you? Have you been just sitting around waiting to get it all finalised? Why the delay in coming out with this support?
It's certainly not been something that we haven't been considering. I think you may recall at the last press conference on Friday, I said that we were reviewing all our options, which we have done, and we've determined that we should bring this support forward at this precise point. So it's very similar to last year. It's business support grant. Eligible businesses and the self-employed with qualifying conditions can access this £1,500, £1,500. And we think it will be of assistance, certainly in the short term, whilst we get to understand how successful the lockdown is being in terms of getting the virus under control.
But it's not as generous as last time. In fact, it's half the amount, isn't it?
Yes, but last time, Paul, when we started this whole COVID journey and the virus arrived on these shores, if you remember, we'd got a quite significant number of people with the virus at the time. It was spreading quite quickly. We didn't really know what we were dealing with, and we did shut down knowing that it was going to be a fairly lengthy shutdown period. We've learned a lot since then, and we believe that this time, a short, sharp shock to the system, if you like, in terms of shutting down and shutting down hard, could well get these various clusters under control. There's very limited community spread. You heard Henrietta Hewitt last night coming forward with a little bit of optimism that the lockdown was working. And so then we're going to have to continue to monitor the situation with financial support. And look, if this starts to spread out and gets worse, then clearly we're going to have to look at what we're doing. And there would certainly be a second tranche of the business support scheme if this started extending out well into mid-February and longer.
I think for many people self-employed, they've had a break over Christmas. Then probably some of them didn't even get back to work. And then now they've been into lockdown. This doesn't seem to be enough money to really cover them for what their bills may be outstanding.
Yeah, it's a difficult time of year, certainly. I don't think that is helping. In fact, I just don't think any time of year is great to tell people that they're going to have to go home in the national interest. But look, we're dealing with a national crisis. We've bought support schemes that will help support people try and meet some of their needs during this period of time. We can't necessarily design the perfect schemes for absolutely everybody. Bear in mind, of course, that actually these schemes, particularly the Mirror, doesn't really ask a lot of questions. It gives people pretty quick and direct access to the benefits system. Takes really for granted the fact that they are unable to work and that they are genuinely staying at home, and will pay out this basic minimum £200 a week. Doesn't take into account any household income or other extenuating circumstances. But it is only intended to be a short-term supporting measure. And as I said, if the situation worsened in the longer term, and we found there were large proportions of people who were really struggling as a result, then of course we're going to have to look at things. The other thing I would quickly say is that if anybody really is genuinely struggling at the moment and really doesn't know what to do, they must go and speak to Social Security. There may be other options there in the benefits system which will get them payments to support them in some of the challenges that they're facing at the moment.
Okay, well, Mirror may be okay and easy to get hold of. I don't know, but we'll find out. But the business support scheme, you're asking people to jump through quite a lot of hoops. You're asking to fill in forms and some checks and balances in there, isn't there, to make sure the right people are getting it this time?
Well, no. I mean, what we're doing actually this time is that once you've applied, yes, of course, there has to be some checks and balances. We've got public money that we're dealing with. We have to take an appropriate level of control over that and make sure that we are genuinely distributing it to people who are qualifying or deserve it. But what I can say this time is that anybody who registers and was accepted and qualified on the last batch will get fast-tracked through the system, that any new businesses or new applicants will have to go through some qualifying procedures, which includes checking their tax and national insurance records. But if you previously had this support, you're going to find it's being distributed much more quickly. And as I said, Paul, I mean, it's £1,500 this time around, and not the 3,000. But we will review that. If we think this is going to go on longer and we need to get more support out there, then we're not going to hesitate to do that. And I think that's why some people feel a bit frustrated, because it is different. We're not entirely sure, the timescales that we're necessarily dealing with at the moment. And I think we've got to act in terms of funding and paying out accordingly.
You mentioned NI. That was a problem last time. Some people weren't up to date with the NI. Is that still the case then this time? Exactly the same rules?
Yeah, again, I mean, I think we've always had some issues in the self-employed space. I mean, everybody who's self-employed particularly has to pay Class 2 national insurance. If you're not paid your Class 2 national insurance, then the national insurance system, if you like, is not going to pay out. You have to have paid in order to get paid out. Now, that's not necessarily insurmountable, but we are asking that people pay up to date and make their relevant payments, which in this case is approximately £70 that they would need to pay to ensure that we were back into the national insurance system.
And people who pay dividends themselves and use that as their means of financing their businesses, how are they caught up in this?
Well, if you've used the system to avoid paying national insurance, then the national insurance system is not going to pay out for you, Paul. And that's one of the things that we will be discussing, I think, politically, parliamentary wise, in due course later this year, once I bring forward a report into the national insurance system. And I think it's one of these issues now that needs to be looked at for the future in terms of whether the national insurance system is operating properly and fairly. Because this is the second time around now, so second time in 2 years. Clearly, you would think these are exceptional circumstances, but there's no guarantees going forward that viruses and virus controls aren't going to be needed into the future. So really, I think it's in everybody's interest that they pay appropriately into the national insurance system to ensure that they, and their families are going to be properly protected at time of crisis.